Phillies have a media availability tomorrow. Pete Mackinnon going to be talking to the media and more. I'm sure the guys will be touching on some of that, as Frank Klose will as well over at 97.3 ESPN.com. He's got the latest on the Phillies as they have brought in a 2016 American League All-Star and a guy who hit 24 home runs last year, Frank. I guess the first question would be, Michael Saunders was a free agent. Why were the Blue Jays not interested in bringing back a hometown guy?
Well, I think you had two things at play there. First is they really didn't have a position for him. The Blue Jays added, rumors are anyway, they've re-added Jose Bautista, and it seemed like once Bautista was on board, then Saunders kind of got the idea that he was not going to be back in Toronto. So the Phillies got kind of lucky. I think that the Blue Jays would have gone down that road if Bautista did not resign. But I think Saunders kind of saw the writing on the wall, so he decided to sign with the Phillies.
So, we're into January now, and he was still out of the market. Gets a 1-year, $9 million pact. I guess the part two of that question would be, how come? And by the way, Bautista not officially signed with the Blue Jays yet, but it looks like he's going down that road. But if it's January and Saunders gets a 1-year deal with a team that doesn't have a lot of expectations, what was it about him that other teams maybe weren't interested?
Well, last season was a tale of two seasons for Saunders. As you mentioned, he was indeed an American League All-Star. He had a really terrific first half last season. He batted .298 before the All-Star break. He hit 16 of his 24 home runs before the All-Star break. He also hit a bunch of doubles as well before the All-Star break. But then the second half, he sort of fell off the earth. All of a sudden he's batting in the high 100s. He hit just 178 the second half of the season. Hit only 8 of his home runs and drove in only 15 of his runs batted in when he had 42 right before the All-Star break. So it seems like Saunders played really, really well in the first half, and then he kind of hit a wall. And if you look throughout his history in his major league career, he never really hit that high for average. So this really strong first half kind of made him the type of player where a team takes a chance and throws so many at him. The Phillies, it looks like it'll be essentially a 1-year deal with an option. And that type of risk is hard for a team like the Phillies to make, whereas if you're somebody who's near contention or in contention and you already have a lot of your payroll commit, you're not going to make that type of leap. So the Phillies having a lot of money available and having the need for a left-handed bat, it really worked out for Michael Saunders.
So Frank Klose with us right here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. He's got the article up at 97.3 ESPN.com about Saunders. Where does he fit in on this team? He's a left-handed bat. Scott Profrock was on the show with us about a month ago and said they were looking for one, so they got one. Where do you see him fitting in? Is he an everyday player? He was in Toronto pretty much an everyday player. Is he an everyday player here? Who's the odd man out? How do you see this all going down? What's the domino effect?
Well, I think that means for sure that one of Aaron Altair or Roman Quinn starts the season at AAA Lehigh Valley. I think they're going to say that both players have the opportunity to win a job. I tend to think it'll be Aaron Altair who gets the job as that extra outfielder, but I think Saunders will play most of the time, as a lefty bat, and you're facing mostly right-handed pitchers because there are mostly right-handed pitchers in the league. He'll probably start most of the time, and maybe somebody like Aaron Altair will bat against left-handers that start in right field. Now, Saunders isn't that much of an outfielder. I think if they had their druthers, Saunders would be a left fielder, but they already promised left field to Howie Kendrick. So it looks like you're going to probably have a platoon in right field of Michael Saunders and Aaron Altair, if I had to guess. And again, the lefty bat usually makes most of the appearances in the outfield. So I think he's going to play most of the time. He may play even against some left-handed pitchers as well, but you really needed somebody with the left-handed bat to balance the lineup. When you get into the part of the lineup where you have Mike Franco and Tom Joseph, it would be very helpful if a left-handed bat broke the two of them up, and I think that's what his role is going to be, is to start most of the time and probably hit between Franco and Tommy Joseph.
So, you get a guy, and look, left-handed bat, this is a good ballpark. I mean, he had 24 home runs last year. He's a guy that could probably hit for some power in this park. Could be a big help for Franco if he's hitting behind him in the lineup, and adds a little bit of depth to the lineup. The Phillies are sorely lacking a power bat coming from the outfield.
Yeah, I think they would have liked to, and I mentioned this before, I think, on 97.3 ESPN.com. I think they might have preferred a Brandon Moss type. And if you listen to that Scott Profrock interview on your airwaves again, he said he really wanted somebody who could play some outfield and at the same time play some first base, which seems to be the description for Brandon Moss. Saunders might have been their second choice because now they don't necessarily have a left-handed option at first base, unless non-roster invitee Daniel Nava makes the club as a utility player. So I think when they were looking for a bat that could play from the left side, I think that they were thinking more Moss. But from what I've read out there, just various reports, it sounds like Moss wanted too much money or too many years, and Brandon Moss is 36 years old at this point. So it seems like Saunders, at age 30, is a better candidate to have a better season offensively. And I think that at the same time, like we keep saying about all these veteran players that the Phillies are bringing in, comes the chance to trade him at the trade deadline. And I think, too, if you remember back to last year, Nick Williams even personally admitted that he saw the big gaps in the Phillies outfield, and he pressed really hard, and he ended up struggling down the stretch. I think this could be a situation where if Nick Williams is knocking down the door saying, yes, I need to come up to the major leagues, I belong there, the Phillies can easily trade Saunders, or if Saunders is really doing that poorly, you can always just cut him. So, and then Williams will sort of assume that left-handed bat role. So somebody like Saunders gives them that option, at least, that they can kind of have a solid outfield. They can protect the right-handed hitters, and at the same time, too, if they need to cut ties with him, it's only a one-year commitment, and they have plenty of money.
Right. This is your classic Phillies move of the last couple of years. Get a guy who's a veteran on a team that doesn't have expectations, and hopefully spin him off at the deadline. Something that they did with Hellickson last year. Didn't end up weren't able to trade him off. Now he's back again, but it's a path they've kind of gone down the last couple of years, is bringing in that veteran, trying to showcase.
Yeah, it makes sense too, because one thing that you really want to do, especially with a lot of young players, you want your team to function like it's going to function if everything's going well. And by adding somebody like Saunders, he may not be 30 home run, 300 hitter, left-handed bat, but at the same time, he is a left-handed bat. He does have some power. He can bring some really good things to the offense, and at least they can set up the lineup like it might function when one of those bats in the system comes up and actually is productive. So this gives a real functionality to the lineup.
Down in spring training is going to be here before we know it, pitchers and catchers. For you, Frank, what is the most intriguing spring training story?
That's a really, really good question. I think right now we really want to see the young players that are invited to camp. So anybody that was added to the 40-man roster off season, the players like Andrew Knapp, players like Dylan Cousins, they all get and Nick Williams, they all get their first big league spring training. So no matter what, they're going to open the season in big league spring training because they're on the 40-man roster. And so this will really give us a chance to see what those types of players can do. Albeit in spring training games, but you're going to get a real look of what they can do in game action against some major league players. Not a perfect look at them, but as we saw last year with Roman Quinn and J.P. Crawford, we first got to see them. Now, speaking of Crawford, when you have players like him who might be a step closer compared to last year, he's probably going to be somebody that they look at for the entire duration of camp. Nick Williams, probably the entire duration of camp. And you're really going to get to see a little bit more about what those guys have. So I think right now the focus is on the young players, seeing what they can do, and really just kind of letting especially the top prospects go out there and just go. And really seeing if they step up and they make a statement that they belong in the major leagues.
Good stuff, Frank. Pitchers and catchers less than a month. Philly spring training right around that first week of March. Last week of February is when they start playing the games, and there will be a lot of very interesting storylines on top of some of the things that Frank just mentioned. Looking forward to that. And, of course, Frank's coverage at 97.3 ESPN.com. SportsTalkPhilly.com is where you can find all of the stuff from Frank and the guys as well. All right, pal. Philly's getting close, right? Getting close.
Yeah, be here before we know it.
All right, buddy. We'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Mike.